Nobody can do it better than me. I can do it faster than them. Why bother turning it over to them? When you're a leader, you have influence over somebody. The only way to lead somebody is to have influence over them. But as an influencer, you have to know how to motivate them. Every step of your journey is about relinquishing what you do and building the best team around you. Each of those steps is about working less in the business and more on the business.
Welcome to today's episode. Today, we're going to talk about leadership and specifically leadership through the different stages of business growth, because there are so many different hats that we need to be wearing at different stages. And that means that our leadership needs to be able to flow and ebb with those seasons that we have. So I've invited David Anderson to join us today, who is the author of Leadership is Not a Title. And we're going to talk about leadership in those 7 stages. So welcome, David.
Thank you. Glad to be on. Thank you very much for having me.
Such a pleasure. Now, you do talk about the 7 stages of business growth. Let's set the context right at the beginning to make it nice and easy. What are those 7 stages? And then what makes leadership so critical at each of those stages?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, any of your listeners here can do, any type of Google searches, do your chat GPT searches, and you're going to see the stages of growth. And, there you're going to see 5 stages of growth, 7 stages of growth. So it's a broad area. From the 7 stages of growth standpoint, mostly, how I've learned about them and defined really evolves as you go through the number of team members that you have. There's a correlation between the number of employees and the stages of growth revenue that you go through, but it's even more that's more blurred this day and age when you have a global workforce anymore of people working all over the world. We have virtual assistants, we have contractors. 2 of my businesses alone, we've gone from over 50 full-time headcounts down to, in the 20s, because we can utilize the freelance economy, gig economy, whatever you want to call it. We have virtual assistants based out of the Philippines and looking at, other places there. So I would just say there's no exact sciences, but, some of the things that I have learned and gone through is, stage 1 is that startup till about 10 people. That's really we're going to make this work come heck or high water, grinding it out. Stage 2 is the 11 to 19 employees. And then it goes from there, from the 20 to 34-ish. Then, you kind of take the bigger 58 to 100, 100 to 150, 160. And then really once you get to that 150 plus, you got 500 or so. And then it takes, even another bigger leap from there. But again, this differs a little bit by industries, by where you are in the world. So I would take the 7 stages an exact head count or exact numbers kind of as parameters, but not hard written rules, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It just gives us some guidelines to work on.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about that lower end of the scale, because I think that when you're in that sort of that traction to scale sort of phase, like there's a big jump there from a leadership perspective. What makes leadership, or what trait, let's go with that, what trait is usually missing through that stage?
In the like I outlined, the startup stage, the first 1 to 10 employees type of phase, I will tell you from my standpoint, the biggest single trait you need to have is grit. You just need to have the grit trait that you are gonna power through thing every day. You are gonna wake up to the worst news that you've had some days, and the next day you're going to work up to the best news that you've had. You are going to find the exact right person to join the team, and they're going to be a rock star. And your next hire is going to be the absolute worst person you've ever hired in your life. And you got to deal with that. You're going to have a potential client, you're going to win business and be everything you expected it to be. And you're going to win business that is going to be absolutely nothing that you hoped it would be. And you just have to have the mindset of grit that I'm going to get beaten up every day. And that definitely carries on into stage two, but you just have a little bit more resources and people and money and that to help you through that.
Totally. So you talked about grit being that, the good and the bad. What sort of mindset needs to evolve to be able to deal with that?
Yeah, I had a mentor of ours when I started. I started with a business partner, and his name is Win. And Win said to us when we started out, we asked him for some advice. He said, things will never be as good as you think they are, and they will never be as bad as you think they are. So
Mm.
it kind of really helped keep us center of, wow, what a great week. It's going to go on forever. No, it's not. And the next week is going to be the worst week you've ever gone through. And it's not going to last forever. The next good one will come around. So you just got to keep that in perspective that this is like life. You have your ups and downs, your bad days, good days, partners, marriages, brothers, sisters, family,
Mm-hmm.
friends. There's no difference. It's, when you're a business, I'm going to assume, the startup phase, you're an entrepreneur, maybe a lot of your listeners, entrepreneurship is 360 degrees.
Yeah.
And you just have to be okay with that you can't separate my work life, my business life, my family life, my community life. Entrepreneurship is 360 degrees. Does that make sense to
Yeah.
you also?
Oh my goodness. Yes, absolutely. And I even had a little giggle before you said when you wake up, it might be a good day, or when you wake up. And I think, no, there's many times that I was just awake like a lot of the
Yeah,
night.
very true.
What are some of the resources that you have tapped into through that phase, or that you've helped other CEOs tap into at that phase? Because yes, it's 360, but you can't just do it alone with no resources, no people. So, what are some of the things that you've helped people with?
Yeah, there's a couple things, and that's a great question. I will tell you my number one is have the right partner, spouse. If you're single and as you go through this, you get with somebody, you have to have that ongoing support. You can't go home and know you're going to have a bad day and get criticized. And I have the most wonderful wife in the world for 30 years now. We started the company 26 plus years ago. And too, Samantha, hey, honey, there's not going to be a paycheck this week, this month,
Mm.
might be 2, 3 months. And she has never once complained. She's like, okay, I'll go get more coupons, or,
Yeah.
we'll have more pasta this month. Or so the support system you have around you, and that's, mom, dad, brothers, sisters, whoever it is, you got to have that. Number two is don't try to do it alone. Find a mentor, find somebody who's been through it that can be a sounding board that you can go to. I am a member of the Entrepreneurs Organization, which is 20,000 plus entrepreneurs around the world, almost 90 countries, maybe even over 90 countries. And then in my local chapter here in Arizona, there's a forum, there's a peer group, a CEO group. And that CEO group has gotten me through just about everything. And I was in Vistage before EO. So I don't really care what you join, although I'm a big advocate of EO. If any of them are listening, find a group of fellow entrepreneurs, CEOs, senior executives, whatever it is, that you can go to bounce ideas up. A lot of times they're like my psychologist. I go in
Yeah.
out like, oh my gosh, what happened this week? And it always makes me feel good when one goes, oh my gosh, Dave, that's nothing. Let me tell you what I went through.
Yeah. Yeah. Hold my beer. You
Yeah.
just wait for this one.
Exactly. They're like, stop whining. Let me tell you how this went. And I didn't have that when I started. I'll be honest with you. I come from a very non-entrepreneurial family. Dad was a corporate 25. His company, he worked for a huge conglomerate. So that don't try to do it alone. They say it's lonely at the top. Yeah, I completely agree with that, but it doesn't have to be. Find the
Yeah.
people to help you.
Yeah, totally. moving from solopreneur, because I want to stay here for just a moment, to a CEO with a team is a huge shift. I think it's, I could be wrong, but I feel like this is like the biggest shift because there needs to be such a change in the way you think and the way you do things. What are some of the shifts from a mindset perspective and a like an action perspective that need to evolve as someone goes from that solopreneur to, a CEO with a team?
Yeah, that CEO mindset changes through every single stage of growth. But, the first one, it's funny when we hired our very first employee. Oh my gosh, that was the worst decision ever. I'm like, now I'm responsible for other people. And oh my God, his name was Eric. Eric has a family. And, like making that
Mm,
first hire was just agonizing. And, hundreds of hires later now I still am like, wow, I'm responsible for this person
totally.
and their family that goes with it. But I would say the biggest mindset shift is letting go. And that continues on through every phase of growth where the CEO, president, whatever your title, founder, pick a title, goes is CEO executive evolution to me is about letting go and trusting other people, how to hold people accountable, being their mentor as a leader. When you're a leader, you have influence over somebody, but the only way to lead somebody is to have influence over them. But as an influencer, you have to know how to motivate them. And so you have to, but I've seen so many entrepreneurs over the years bring somebody on, but then have the mindset, nobody can do it better than me. I can do it faster than them. Why bother turning it over to them? And
Mm-hmm.
every step of your journey is about relinquishing what you do and building the best team around you so that you can, soulpreneur, as you call it, each of those steps is about working less in the business and more on the business. And you just
Mm-hmm.
have to have the
Mm-hmm.
right mindset. And that goes all the way through to the biggest companies where, then 90% of your job is the working on the business, visionary, looking to the future, where in the early stage, you got to do this stuff too.
Yeah, totally.
My business partner and I used to joke, oh, it's 5 o'clock. It's time for the second work day to start. We would, yeah,
I get that. Yeah.
yeah, we would go meet with clients, get work, schmooze, take to lunch, do all of that. At 5 o'clock, we'd start doing the work, that was due the next day.
Totally. It's very easy to say, you need to let go and you need to do those things. But when you're in it, it can be very difficult to notice it. Like I often say, it's very difficult to read the label from inside the jar. And it's easier to be able to see it in others. So what are the blind spots that people can sort of look out for so that they don't get held in those, like held stuck for longer than they really need to be?
Yeah, first of all, I love that analogy, and I am going to steal it from you of
I don't
being
know
in
where
the
it came from.
jar.
It's not mine. I'll just let you know.
Well, I heard it
So
from
borrow
you
it and
for
use it.
I'm going to steal it because I love that, because so many times we are in the jar looking, wishing we were on the outside and how do you get there? For me, I'm a huge scheduling, time management, time blocking type of person. You really got to go into each day with a plan of attack. What am I going to delegate? Who do I need to follow up on? I'm going to put time on my calendar to block to think through this, coming up with ideas, whatever. So it's really, and what I have learned and read and everything else, as you go through the phases of growth, the biggest thing is, especially from stage 1, 2, and 3, is putting processes in place because it
Mm,
goes from four of you sitting in a room working on something, yelling across, hey, do you have this? Hey, do you have that? Hey, I need this. Hey, I'm going there. To your team hits, 20 people, even a dozen people. It's not functionable anymore. So you have to put the processes in place. What are people's roles? Letting people do their roles. But as the leader, you also have to ensure you put the right accountabilities in place. And what I see so many times is accountability is, hey, did you do this? Let me see it. It's not what I want, so I redo it to the way that I want it and send it back, rather than, hey, thanks for this, a lot of good points. Here's where we need to adjust. Here's what we need to do. Go back and do it. Because I have a term, HBUT, highest and best use of time. And every single day I go, is this the highest and best use of my time? Should I be working on this, or can I be doing something better? And if I can be doing something more valuable to the organization, for myself, whatever it may be, then I need to delegate it and give it to others to get it done.
I love this accountability piece, because I think this is something that I struggled with first when I got team. And like you, I've been in business over 30 years. So, and like, I'll be honest, sometimes I still struggle with it now. What are some of the processes? Let's put those two pieces together. What are some of the processes that you put in place for the accountability? For instance, do you do like quarterly check-ins, or other people watching over? Like what could that look like, or what does that look like?
Yeah, two things. And believe me, I wish I had it figured out also. I will tell you, it took me 20 plus years to figure it out. And while I still don't have it perfected, two things. I talked about process and systems before. We use EOS, the entrepreneurial operating system, with quarterly rocks, annual goals. And that has been huge in holding people accountable, because you meet as a team, you're accountable to each other. That, and there's, we use EOS. I'm a fan of it, but there's scaling growth. There's Pinnacle, there's what's burned harnesses. There's a bunch of them out there. I like EOS, but use something is what I would tell people to do. And then for me, the other biggest thing is I stopped being the one holding people accountable, and I hired somebody better at it than me. A different president, a GM, and now we have a president that runs it. And so I just have to kind of work with one person, but I have a person who's 100,000% better at holding people accountable. The details, holding people accountable is a lot of detail, and I'm miserable at detail. Like, my wife will ask me to do something, and then she texts me because she knows I'll forget to do something. But if it's on my text, okay, here, Dave, here's the detail that I need, for you to do. So, and I know for entrepreneurs, CEOs, founders, and that kind of stuff, sometimes it's hard to realize, reconcile, and accept that there's people better than you at other things. And I don't know if you know Dan Sullivan's books, Who Not How, or 10X is Easier Than 2X. Huge awesome fans books. Of those. Awesome books. Marshall Goldsmith, What Got You Here Won't Get You There, is also one of my absolute. All three of those are kind of the foundation of my building high performing teams and helping get to the next level. There's a bunch of others, but those are theirs. And a lot of entrepreneurs, CEOs can't get past that. And it's their downfall that, who not how is you don't have the right who's around you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that so many founders, CEOs, people that start companies are the visionary people. And generally speaking, most visionary people are not really great down in the weeds. And my very first mentor was my first boss. I was so lucky. I had my first job at, 15 or 16 when I was at high school. And the guy, I actually worked for McDonald's, and he owned 4 stores. And him and I just really clicked. I was a real nerdy kid, and I used to go jump on his desk, sit on his desk, and he was quite okay with that, and go, hey, Chris, tell me about such and such, or why are you doing that? And he mentored me. So a few years later, when I opened my business, I actually rang him and went, will you mentor me? And I was so lucky that he did. And he did that for free for me, just to, give me my start. But one of the very first things he said to me was, always hire better than you. And it was one of the most it was just such a great piece of advice that I still do it to this day. It's like always hire better than you. And I think that, you know, you spoke to that piece where coming out of that solopreneur phase, most people just think that they're better and, you know, do it my way. And it is, I see it as one of the biggest downfalls.
I totally agree. I may, if I may, adapt just a little bit. You've been in business 30 years, so you're pretty darn good. So better than you, give yourself some credit. For me, it's different than you. It's so many times we want people around us that are just like us, that will agree with us, that will
Mm-hmm.
do that. Oh, they're that. So, building a high performing team is like a sports team. My
Mm-hmm.
son plays college baseball. You can't have a whole team of shortstops. You can't have only pitchers. It's getting the right players that work together that win. And I really encourage whatever role you're in to have that sports analogy, or what are the pieces that I need to make this a high performing team? I can't have, no football team has only quarterbacks on the
Mm.
team. So who's your right tackle that's gonna, or left tackle that's gonna keep you from getting sacked? It's that mindset. I also, in my book, I talk a lot about leadership is like being a chemist, because it's the right mix of the right
Mm.
chemicals, the right things. And each time you bring a new person into the team, it may change the outcome of that chemical compound which you put together. So
Totally.
how do you have to adjust your mix of chemicals to ensure that the output is achieving what you want it to be? And so many times, just like you said, the better than you, yes, I have a lot. It's not that hard to hire people smarter than me, but also just different skill sets and
Yeah.
different, some people don't think like you and I as visionaries. They just can't. We use Culture Index a lot. Also, I'm a big fan of Culture Index, which is a great source to use for really helping identify different traits of people. There's a ton out there, disc, there's a bunch. I
Mm.
just happen to like Culture Index of what to do.
Mm. And I think even layering on top of that again, something that we're very aware of when we hire a new team member is not just the skill set, like talking about that chemist analogy, I love, because we always think when we are interviewing someone, how will they fit with the team from a personality standpoint? Because there might be someone that you know is going to be working under an amazing team lead that you already have, and you can see that they're going to butt heads, even though technically they're going to be great at the job. You're just like, oh, yeah, I don't really want my team ripped apart. So I can just see this isn't going to work. And I think that just
Yeah.
understanding that as well, it just brings something else to the mix, right?
Yep, absolutely. I totally agree. So yeah, that the chemistry analogy works well with me.
Yeah, I really like that. For people that are in that early stage, in that startup phase, looking or listening to this, even, it can feel like a luxury to have a team. What does effective leadership look like when you're still wearing all the hats? Because just because you don't have a team doesn't mean there's not leadership there, right?
Absolutely. I mean, John Maxwell, before you can lead others, you have to lead yourself. So he talks a lot about that. And for me, it's your core values at that point. What are you going to stick to at your core values? I'm sure you've realized this too after many years, Samantha, that not all revenue is good revenue.
Mm-hmm.
So, you can take on bad clients that end up costing you more. They ask you to do things aren't right, and that. So, in the early stages when you're just dying for revenue, being able to stick to who you are, what you want to do. If your business has a specific niche and then somebody comes along and they'll, oh, hey, will you do this? Which I'm guilty of. I'm an entrepreneur, so squirrel. I'm always like my team hates it.
Yeah.
They're like, they'll only let me talk to Karen, our president, because then she filters through what I say and that kind of stuff. But staying on course, what you want to do, true to who you are, true to what you want to do, can be very difficult when you got bills to pay. But I would
Mm.
just always encourage people. And then you can have people around you to help you do that, part of that support system. whether it's your spouse at home, it's the mentor. For me, my dad was a huge help, even though he was an entrepreneur. It's what you surround yourself with.
I love that. So you've worked with lots of people from multiple industries. What have you noticed are some of the telltale signs that a business owner is ready to grow into the next stage of leadership?
My favorite thing is I have no time. I'm always working. I can't do that.
Mm,
I don't even have time to hire somebody. The business needs me or whatever is a sign that you need to start finding ways to relinquish, hire the right people. It's really, you can see entrepreneurs stressing, and you'll also cap out. You'll only get so big if it's all about you as the entrepreneur. Again, going back to Marshall Goldsmith, what got you here won't get you there. You have to constantly look, okay, man, I've hit $500,000 in revenue now. It's a service business. I'm selling hours. There's only so many hours I can sell in a day,
mm-hmm.
So what do I need to do? I need to hire people to do that. So the first thing is that feeling of being overwhelmed. I have no time. You're neglecting your family, which I would say I was guilty of at stages of this going forward.
Mm.
And also when you stop having fun.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up because we only give this one short life, right? And what's it all about if you're not having fun? And fun is actually something that we've brought into our company goals because I want my team to be having fun too, because it's so much easier to achieve a goal if you're having fun. So I'm not talking about, just mucking about, but bringing gamification into the projects that we're doing and celebrating as a team, I think is so important. So I love that you brought that up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mucking around. I'm gonna steal that from
Mucking
you
around.
too. I like that.
I forget that some of our Australianisms don't cross over.
Oh, I totally know what you meant, but I'm gonna go home tonight and be like, "Will you stop mucking around, Debbie?" To my wife, I'll let you know what look I get from
Yeah,
her.
do.
Yeah,
She'll be
or
like, who
when I
have
see,
you been speaking to today?
yeah, I'll send a few emails tonight to the team saying I feel we're just mucking around. It'll be interesting to see what I get back.
Oh my goodness, you made me laugh. So obviously we've been talking about leadership. You've got your book, as I mentioned earlier, Leadership is Not a Title. For people that want to stay connected to you, where else can they find out about you or stay connected?
Yeah, absolutely. LinkedIn is always a great place. David Anderson, I'm sure there's not another one of us in the world. So you can track me down through, David Anderson, Arizona, DWA leadership. You'll track me down. But the best way to get a hold of me is my website, my personal website for coaching, speaking, sitting on boards of directors and that, which is DWA as in David Wayne Anderson leadership.com. And there's a bunch of information. There's a bunch of content. You can reach out to me. There's all kinds of stuff on there.
And of course, we'll put all of those links in the show notes below wherever you're listening, so that all you need to do is go and find the link that you want to connect with David on and click that. David, I'd like to finish with one last question for the founder, the CEO, the leader that's listening or watching us, and they're feeling overwhelmed and they don't really know what their next step is. What's the very first leadership move they should make today?
First of all, don't try to do it alone. Find a community, find a tribe, find a single person, find somebody else that you can talk through things. It's really hard to go through it all. And what we all go through, I would say 99.9% of it, somebody else has gone through.
Mm,
And so the answer is out there, what we've done really well and also what we've done well. I'm not a big fan of telling people what to do, but we all think of how many experiences you and I have been through, Samantha, in 30 years of business. So find the right tribe community to go through that with. Another lesson I took me a long time to learn, you got to find the time to get away, to just think through things. Go spend 3 hours at Starbucks with your email turned off.
mm-hmm.
A pad and paper. Imagine what is pad and paper. That's unheard of anymore. Sit and make notes, think through things, but you got to find the time to allow yourself to really think and go through things. We make hundreds of decisions a day. Find the time to deal with the big ones that you need to do. And, on my schedule, every day I have a timeout period, 45 minutes to an hour. Yes, sometimes it moves around based on my schedule, but every single day I block off. My assistant puts it on my schedule, 45 minutes of timeout. I just put myself in timeout. Sometimes I read, sometimes I just think, sometimes I go sit outside, sometimes I go get a Starbucks, but it's always just by myself and no electronics.
I absolutely love that. And I couldn't agree more. A friend of mine, and I'll say a friend of mine, I can't actually remember which friend to be able to let you know that, but she calls it CEO time. And we've got a little sign in our office, just like protect the CEO energy at all times. Because if we are trying to give from an empty cup, it just won't work. And it all starts at the top and it comes down. So I love those analogies or those tips there. David, thanks so much for coming on the show and sharing your wisdom with us and your stories. It's been absolutely fabulous.
Oh, I loved it. And I have a couple new slang terms to use. So I learned here too. So thank you very much.
Such a pleasure.